All right, so today we're tackling cybersecurity concepts.
Okay.
Um, Seems like you're looking for a good understanding of the core principles,
Right.
maybe to get ready for a meeting or just out of curiosity.
Yeah, could be.
Well, we've got you covered with this deep dive
Yeah.
into the CISP concepts guide you gave us.
It's a really good resource.
Yeah.
It goes beyond the technical stuff.
Okay.
It even starts by talking about ethics,
Ethics?
both the ISC Code of Ethics
Mm-hmm.
and the 10 Commandments of Computer Ethics.
10 Commandments.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty serious.
Yeah.
Like digital stone tablets?
Well, not quite tablets, but similar.
Okay.
It's setting the foundation for ethical behavior in cybersecurity.
I see.
For example, the ISC Code emphasizes protecting society,
Mm-hmm.
acting honestly and legally,
Right.
and providing competent service.
Okay, so no like taking down your rival's website just because you can?
No.
More like using your powers for good.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the computer ethics commandments get into specifics like respecting others' work and systems,
Yeah.
not snooping around or using computers to spread misinformation.
Right.
They really hit on the digital age's thou shalt nots.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The ethical dilemmas someone in cybersecurity might face?
Oh, definitely.
It's not always clear cut, is it?
Definitely not.
No.
Like, imagine you discover a system vulnerability
Mm-hmm.
and it could expose sensitive data.
Right.
Do you disclose it right away, even though attackers might learn about it too?
Right.
Or what about if you're asked to do something legally questionable,
Okay.
like monitoring employee communications?
Interesting.
Where do you draw the line?
Yeah, where do you draw the line?
Right.
Those are tough calls.
Yeah.
It makes you realize the responsibility that
Yeah.
comes with this expertise.
Exactly.
Okay, so ethics check.
Mm-hmm.
What else is foundational in cybersecurity?
Well, the guide moves on to the CIA triad.
Okay.
And no, this has nothing to do with spying agencies.
CIA triad. All right. I'm intrigued. Yeah.
Tell me more.
It stands for confidentiality, integrity, and availability.
Okay.
The cornerstones of information security.
Okay.
Confidentiality means keeping information private and secure,
Mm-hmm.
like locking your diary so only you can read it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So what about integrity?
Integrity makes sure that information hasn't been tampered with
Okay.
and that it stays accurate and trustworthy,
Got it.
like making sure no one rewrites your diary entries.
Right, so it's not just keeping things secret.
Yeah.
It's about keeping them accurate.
Exactly.
And I guess availability means you can always get to that diary
Yes,
whenever you need to.
exactly. The information is available to anyone authorized
Okay.
when they need it.
But what's interesting is
Yeah.
these principles aren't just theoretical. We see breakdowns of the CIA triad all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Right in the real world.
Absolutely.
Like those big data breaches you hear about.
Exactly.
That's confidentiality gone wrong.
Millions of people's information compromised,
Yeah.
leading to identity theft and financial loss.
Exactly.
Or how about when a big website crashes?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's locked out.
Right.
Businesses can't operate.
Yeah.
That's availability taking a hit.
That's availability for sure.
And those are just the big ones.
Right.
The
Yeah.
smaller breaches happen all the time.
Yeah, constantly.
Imagine medical records being changed,
Mhm.
financial transactions being manipulated,
Yeah.
critical infrastructure going down.
Can be scary.
Consequences could be huge.
Absolutely.
So the CIA triad,
yeah.
it's not just jargon.
No.
It's the foundation for understanding how to protect information
Right.
in a digital world full of risks.
Absolutely.
So we understand what we're trying to protect.
Mm-hmm.
The next step is figuring out how to assess the risks.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, risk assessment.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Isn't it just about identifying what could go wrong?
Well, it's more than gut feelings. The guide breaks risk down into 3 parts: assets, threats, and vulnerabilities.
Okay, so assets are the things we want to protect,
Exactly.
like our super secret diary.
Right. Assets can be anything valuable.
Okay,
Data,
Mhm.
systems, infrastructure, even people.
got it.
Yeah.
And threats are the things that could harm those assets.
Uh-huh.
So for our diary,
Mm-hmm.
the threat could be a nosy sibling
Exactly.
trying to sneak a peek.
Threats can be anything from hackers
Right.
to natural disasters
Yeah.
to accidental deletion
Wow.
or even a disgruntled employee.
So lots of potential troublemakers out there.
Yeah, there are.
Okay, and vulnerabilities.
Right.
Those are the weaknesses
Yes.
that make those assets susceptible to the threats.
Think about our diary.
Okay.
The vulnerability could be a weak lock,
Right.
something easy to pick or bypass.
Or maybe I just left the key lying around,
Right.
which brings in the human element.
Exactly.
Right? It's not just the technology.
Right.
It's how people interact with it.
You're absolutely right. The human factor is often the weakest link.
So we've got our assets,
Yes.
our threats,
Yep.
and our vulnerabilities.
Mm,
How do we go from there to actually assessing the risk?
good question.
Is it just, this seems risky, let's not do it?
It's more structured than that.
Okay.
The guide emphasizes calculating risk,
Mm-hmm.
considering both how likely a threat is to happen
Right.
and the potential impact if it does.
So it's not just what could go wrong,
Right.
but how likely it is.
Yeah.
And how bad it would be if it did.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like if our diary has state secrets in it,
Uh-huh.
the impact of that nosy sibling is way higher
Okay.
than if it just has grocery lists,
Right.
even if the likelihood of snooping is the same.
So risk assessment,
Yes.
it's not just gut feelings. It's about data,
Uh-huh.
analysis,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the nuances of each situation.
Absolutely.
And that leads us to the next step.
Right.
What do you do
Mm.
about those risks?
Yeah, what do you do?
How do you protect your assets?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've identified the bad guys and their potential entry points. Now we need to build some defenses.
You do.
What tools do we have in our cybersecurity arsenal?
The guide talks about a range of security controls.
Okay.
Think of it as your defensive toolkit.
A defensive toolkit.
Yeah.
I
Well,
like
they
it.
fall into three main categories:
Okay.
physical, technical,
Okay.
and administrative.
Okay, defensive toolkit. I like it.
Yeah.
What kind of things are we talking about here?
Well, physical controls are the most tangible.
Okay.
They prevent physical access to assets. Think fences, locked doors, security cameras,
Right.
even those super secure entryways called man traps.
Man traps.
Yeah.
What are those? Like some high-tech trap door?
Well, maybe not that traumatic,
Okay.
but essentially they're little rooms with two doors,
Mm-hmm.
and they only open one at a time.
Okay.
It's to prevent tailgating
Ah.
and trap unauthorized people.
So, physical security check.
Right.
What about technical controls?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's where things get more digital.
That's right. Technical controls use technology to protect assets.
Oh, right.
Think firewalls, intrusion detection systems, encryption,
Okay.
all sorts of software and hardware designed to keep data and systems safe.
All right. So, if physical controls are the walls and moats,
Uh-huh.
then technical controls are the digital guards,
That's a great analogy.
patrolling the cyber landscape.
I like it.
And then we have administrative controls.
Right.
So that's the rule book for the digital world.
Yeah, exactly.
Making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Yeah, things like strong password policies,
Mm-hmm.
access controls, security awareness training.
Right.
Those are all administrative controls.
To mitigate risk.
Exactly.
Sounds like a lot to manage.
It can be.
How do all these controls work together?
Good question.
Do we just pile them on top of each other?
Well, it's more about layering them strategically. The guide talks about the Swiss cheese model. It says that no single control is perfect.
Okay.
Each one has holes or weaknesses,
Right.
but when you layer multiple controls together,
Mm-hmm.
those holes start to overlap.
I see.
It makes it much harder for a threat to get through
Okay.
and reach your assets.
I'm picturing a stack of Swiss cheese
Yeah.
with all the holes lining up.
Great.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
The more layers you have,
It's better.
the less chance of something slipping through.
Exactly. It's about creating a multi-layered defense
Got it.
to make it harder for attackers.
Okay, so we're building our fortress.
Uh-huh.
We've got our walls,
Yeah.
our guards, the
Mhm.
rule book.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty secure now.
Good.
Anything else we need to be aware of?
Well, we've covered the fortifications,
Okay.
but there's another crucial aspect
Mm-hmm.
that's often overlooked,
Okay.
the human element.
Oh, right. We talked about that earlier.
Yeah,
People make mistakes.
they do.
Click on phishing links, that sort of thing.
It goes beyond simple mistakes, though.
Okay.
The guide spends a lot of time on social engineering.
Social engineering.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's essentially hacking the human, not the machine.
Social engineering.
Yeah,
That sounds sneaky.
it is.
What's that all about?
It's about exploiting human psychology,
Okay.
our natural tendency to trust,
Right.
to help,
Mhm.
or to be curious,
Okay.
and manipulating people
Mhm.
to give up information or do things that compromise security.
It's like psychological warfare,
Kind of.
but in the digital world.
Yeah, you could say that.
Think about those phishing emails we get.
Oh, yeah.
They prey on our fear of missing out,
Hmm.
our sense of urgency
Mm-hmm.
to get us to click on bad links,
Right. Or give up our passwords.
or someone pretending to be tech support
Oh,
to
right.
get access to your computer,
Yeah.
your network,
That's classic social engineering.
relying on impersonation and authority.
Yeah, to gain trust.
It's amazing how effective these techniques can be.
It is.
I mean, we all like to think we're savvy enough
Right.
to avoid these traps.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's hard to resist that clickbait.
Absolutely. Social engineering is so effective because it plays on those instincts.
Okay.
And the tactics are always evolving.
Right.
It's hard to stay ahead of the game.
So if we can't always rely on our own judgment,
Well,
what's the best way to protect ourselves from these social engineering ninjas?
awareness is key.
Mm-hmm.
The more you understand the tactics,
Right.
the better you'll be at spotting them
Okay.
and avoiding them.
So it's like a game.
Kinda.
You need to know the rules and the opponent's strategy
Exactly.
to win.
You got it.
So it's about educating ourselves,
Yes.
being skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
and not blindly trusting everything we see online.
Absolutely. Always verify requests for information,
Okay.
especially from unexpected places.
Right.
Be wary of attachments or links you weren't expecting,
Mhm.
even if they seem to be from someone you know.
Right.
And if something seems too good to be true,
Yeah.
it probably is.
Okay, so vigilance is our best defense.
It really is.
Don't click without thinking.
Right.
Question everything.
Yes.
Got it.
Good.
But even with all these precautions,
Yeah.
things can still go wrong.
They can.
Systems crash.
Uh-huh.
Data gets corrupted.
Right.
Disasters happen.
They do.
What do we do then?
That's where business continuity and disaster recovery come in.
Okay.
They're about having plans in place to
Mhm.
make sure your operations can continue,
Okay.
even with unexpected events.
Business continuity versus disaster recovery.
Yeah.
Are those two different things?
Think of it this way. Business continuity is about keeping things running smoothly.
Okay.
Even when there are disruptions,
Right.
it's like having a backup plan.
Oh.
So you can keep working,
Mm-hmm.
even if a key system goes down.
Yeah.
Or you lose important data.
So it's about minimizing downtime, keeping the wheels turning even when things get bumpy.
Exactly.
Disaster recovery, on the other hand,
Right.
is about getting back on track after a major incident.
That's right.
It's about restoring systems
Mm.
and data
Mm.
to how they were before,
Yeah.
getting back to normal as quickly as possible.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the distinction.
Good.
Continuity is about staying afloat during the storm,
Right.
and recovery is about rebuilding after the storm's passed.
That's a great way to put it.
But how do these concepts apply to me?
What?
I'm not running a big corporation.
They're relevant to everyone.
Okay.
Think about your own digital life.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do if your computer crashed
Mm-hmm.
and you lost all your files?
Okay.
Or what if your phone was stolen?
Right.
And with it, all your contacts,
Yeah.
photos, and financial information.
Okay. Yeah, those are mini disasters for sure.
They are.
Not fun to think about,
Right.
but definitely worth considering.
Yeah.
But there's those two acronyms I always hear. In relation to disaster recovery, RTO and RPO.
Right.
What are those all about?
Those are key metrics for measuring
Okay.
how quickly and effectively you can recover from an incident.
Okay.
RTO stands for Recovery Time Objective.
Mm.
It's the maximum amount of time
Okay.
that you can afford to have a system down
Right.
before it impacts your operations.
Or your life.
Or your life, yeah.
So like if I'm running an online store,
Mm-hmm.
my RPO might be a few hours
Right.
because every minute of downtime means lost sales.
Yeah.
But if it's just my personal computer,
Huh?
maybe my RTO is a few days
Could be.
because I can function without it for a bit.
Exactly.
And RPO stands for Recovery Point Objective.
Right.
It's about how much data you can afford to lose.
How much data you can afford to lose.
It's determined by how often you back up your data.
Exactly.
So if I back up my files every night,
Mm-hmm.
my RPO is 1 day,
Right.
meaning I could lose a day's worth of work if my computer crashed.
That's great.
But if I use a cloud service
Uh-huh.
that syncs my files constantly,
Yeah.
my RPO is much lower,
It is.
maybe just a few minutes.
Right?
Okay, so RTO is about time.
Yeah.
RPO is about data.
Mm-hmm.
And they both play a crucial role
They do.
in building a resilient digital life.
They're the foundation for creating a plan
Right.
that minimizes downtime and data loss.
Whether you're a business or just a regular person.
Absolutely.
Right, because let's face it,
Mhm.
even with the best defenses,
Yeah.
sometimes things just go wrong.
They do.
And it's all about how quickly we can get back up.
Exactly.
But speaking of data,
Mm-hmm.
we've talked about protecting it from breaches and disasters.
Right.
But what about protecting the information itself?
That's a great point.
I mean, data is basically currency these days.
It is.
Yeah.
The guide goes beyond backups and recovery.
Okay.
It says protecting data needs a multifaceted approach,
Mm-hmm.
understanding where the data is
Right.
and what kind of security it needs at different stages.
Different stages.
Yeah.
Interesting. What are those stages?
Think about it this way. Data can be in transit,
Okay.
meaning it's moving over a network.
Right.
It can be at rest,
Okay.
meaning it's stored on a device or in a database. And it can be in use,
Okay.
meaning it's actively being processed or accessed.
I see. So data on the move,
Right.
data chilling out,
Yeah.
and data being put to work.
That's a great way to visualize it.
And each stage needs different security measures.
It does.
So for data in transit,
Hmm.
encryption is essential
Absolute.
to prevent eavesdropping and interception.
Exactly.
So it's like sending a confidential message
Uh-huh.
in a sealed envelope.
Right. No one can read it along the way.
Exactly.
For data at rest.
Okay.
Encryption is also important,
Mhm.
but you also need strong access controls to
Yeah.
limit who can get to the information.
So it's like putting that sealed envelope in a safe
Yeah.
with only authorized people having the combination.
That's the idea.
And for data in use,
Yeah,
things get a little trickier
they do.
because you can't always encrypt data while it's being used.
Right.
So you need other controls like access controls,
Uh-huh.
application security,
Right.
and monitoring
Yeah.
to make sure the data is being handled securely.
Exactly.
Okay, so data protection,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
No, it's not.
It's about understanding the context,
Right.
the risks,
Yeah.
and applying the right safeguards for
Absolutely.
each situation.
And the guide points out one specific technology
Okay.
that's becoming really important for data protection.
Okay.
It's called data loss prevention, or DLP.
Data loss prevention.
Yeah,
That sounds interesting.
it is.
What's that all about?
Imagine your computer is like a watchdog.
Hmm.
It's monitoring your data,
Okay.
and it automatically stops you from sending sensitive info outside the company
Interesting.
or to people who shouldn't have it.
So it's like a safety net. Catching data leaks before they happen.
That's a great way to think about it.
DLP tools can scan data
Yeah,
for sensitive information.
like credit card numbers
Right.
or social security numbers,
Okay.
and block the transmission
Mhm.
if it violates policy.
Okay. DLP, adding that to my list of cybersecurity must-haves.
Good idea.
But it's not just about leaks, right?
No.
What about getting rid of data completely?
That brings up another part of data security,
Okay.
destruction.
Right.
And it's not as simple as it seems.
What do you mean? Isn't deleting a file enough?
Not always.
Okay.
Data can stick around even after you delete it,
Really?
especially if it's not erased properly.
Yeah.
The guide talks about something called data remnants.
Data remnants.
Yeah, it refers to those leftover bits of data
Interesting.
that you can still recover,
Wow.
even after you think they're gone.
Data ghosts. That's both creepy and concerning.
It is. Think about it this way.
Okay.
When you delete a file, you're not actually erasing the data.
No.
You're just removing the pointer that
Yeah.
tells the computer where it is.
I see.
The data itself might still be there on your hard drive,
Oh, wow.
just hidden.
So it's like tearing up a letter and throwing it away.
Yeah,
Someone could still piece it back together.
exactly. And there are special techniques for securely erasing data
Okay.
to make sure it's really gone.
Yeah. Wow. So data destruction is a whole other level
It is.
of cybersecurity complexity.
Yeah,
Lots to think about there.
for sure.
But now let's move to something a little more exciting,
Okay.
maybe even a little glamorous. Cryptography.
All right.
Tell me about the world of secret codes and ciphers.
Cryptography has always been a bit mysterious, and the guide gives us a glimpse into this world.
Okay.
It starts with a simple cipher. The Caesar cipher.
Caesar cipher.
Yeah,
Like something Julius Caesar might have used.
exactly. It's a substitution cipher
Okay.
where you shift each letter in the message down the alphabet. It's easy to understand,
Right.
but also pretty easy to break,
Especially with today's computers.
especially with today's computers, yes.
So not exactly top secret spy stuff these days,
No,
but it shows a key concept.
right, it does.
What's that?
Complexity is key in modern cryptography.
Okay.
And the guide goes on to talk about two main types of encryption,
Okay.
symmetric and asymmetric.
Two ways to scramble and unscramble messages.
That's right.
What's the difference?
Symmetric encryption uses the same key
Okay.
for both encrypting and decrypting, like
Mhm.
having one key to lock and unlock a door.
Right.
Asymmetric encryption uses a pair of keys,
Uh-huh.
a public key to encrypt,
Mm-hmm.
and a private key to decrypt.
So with asymmetric,
Yeah.
anyone with the public key can send me a message,
Right.
but only I can decrypt it with the private key.
Exactly.
It's a clever system
It is.
that solves the key distribution problem.
That's right.
Because with symmetric,
Yeah.
you have to securely share the key with the other person,
Exactly.
which can be hard.
It can be tricky. Yeah.
Okay. And both types have their strengths and weaknesses,
They do.
making them good for different scenarios.
Right.
It's not about one being better.
No.
It's about the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
But what about those tiny chips I've heard about
Okay.
that do a lot for security?
Yes.
DPMs, I think.
Oh, yes. Trusted platform modules.
Trusted platform modules. Okay.
Tiny but mighty chips.
Tiny chips, big security.
Yeah. How do they do it?
Yeah. How does that work?
They play a big role in cryptography
Okay.
by storing and managing keys securely.
So instead of storing those keys on the hard drive
Right.
where they can be vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
they're safe on this tiny chip.
Exactly. And they can do even more than that.
Like what?
They can generate random numbers
Okay.
for cryptographic purposes.
Mm-hmm.
They can verify the integrity of system files
Wow.
when your computer boots up,
Okay.
and even encrypt data on the hard drive.
So they're like little fortresses inside our devices,
That's a great way to think about it.
providing another layer of security.
Absolutely. They're becoming more and more important
Okay.
as we rely more on digital devices and store more sensitive information on them.
Key PMs. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
They're definitely earning their keep.
they are.
But now let's talk about modern technology.
Okay.
Cloud computing,
Mm-hmm.
Internet of Things,
Yeah.
mobile devices.
Uh-huh.
Everything's connected these days.
It is.
That must have some implications for security.
It absolutely does.
Okay, what are we up against in this grave new world?
Well, let's start with cloud computing.
Okay.
It's incredibly convenient
Mm-hmm.
and cost-effective,
Right.
but it also means you're trusting your data
Right.
in applications to a third party.
So you're basically handing over the keys to your kingdom.
You are.
It takes a lot of trust
A lot of trust.
and due diligence.
You need to really evaluate the cloud provider, understand the shared responsibility model.
Shared responsibility model.
Yes.
So it's not just the cloud provider's job to keep things safe.
Not entirely. You still have a role to play
I'll be
in
doing
setting up security,
Right.
managing access,
Hmm.
and putting security measures in place.
Okay, noted.
Cloud security is a team effort.
Right, a team effort, okay?
What about the Internet of Things, or IoT?
IoT, yeah. It seems like every appliance in my house wants to be online these days.
The IoT brings amazing convenience
Mm-hmm.
and connectivity,
Right.
but it also brings a whole new attack surface.
Okay.
Many IoT devices are notoriously insecure.
Insecure.
Yeah.
How so?
Weak default passwords,
Okay.
limited security features,
There.
often outdated software.
So my smart refrigerator could be a gateway for hackers
It could be.
to get into my home network.
It's a valid concern.
That's not the kind of smart I signed up for.
Right.
And the sheer number of connected devices
Oh, yeah.
creates a complex network
It does.
that can be hard to secure.
It can be.
It's not just about one computer anymore.
No.
It's about a whole ecosystem of devices,
Right.
each with its own vulnerabilities.
Exactly.
And then there's mobile security.
Yeah.
Our smartphones are basically mini computers,
They are.
full of personal information.
Yes. And we lose them all the time.
We do, not to mention all those apps
Right.
asking for permission to access our data
All the time. Yeah.
and our location.
You're hitting on all the key points.
Yeah,
Mobile security is complex.
Okay.
Securing the device, protecting the data,
right.
being careful about app permissions.
Okay, so modern tech is great and convenient,
It is.
but it increases the security risks.
It does.
We need to be aware.
Yeah.
Take steps to mitigate those risks.
Right.
And keep learning and adapting,
Absolutely.
right? The cybersecurity landscape is always changing.
It is.
We need to evolve with it.
We do.
But for now, let's take a short break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll delve into network security,
Sounds good.
penetration testing,
Mm-hmm.
and those ethical hackers
Yes.
who get paid to break into systems.
It's a fascinating world.
Stay tuned.
All right.
Welcome back. We're entering the realm of network security.
Okay.
It can seem daunting,
Yeah.
but it's really about protecting your data and systems
Right.
when they're connected to a network.
That's right. And the guide does a good job of explaining it,
Right.
starting with the layered approach.
The layered approach.
Yeah.
We saw that before with the Swiss cheese model.
Exactly.
How does layering work for network security?
It's similar to building a fortress.
Okay,
Multiple layers of defense working together,
got it.
protecting your valuable assets.
So what are the layers in this network security fortress?
Your first line of defense is physical security,
Okay.
protecting the actual network equipment,
Okay.
servers, routers, switches from physical access,
Right.
and environmental threats.
So we're talking locked rooms,
Mhm.
security cameras,
Yeah.
maybe even laser beams for extra security.
Maybe not laser beams,
Okay.
but you get the idea,
Yeah.
controlling who can physically get to these components.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
If someone can mess with your equipment directly,
right.
no amount of digital security will help.
That's right.
So physical security, check.
Check.
What's the next layer?
Next, you have your technical controls,
Okay.
the digital safeguards
Right.
that protect data flowing through your network.
Okay.
Things like firewalls, intrusion detection systems,
Mhm.
and encryption.
So these are the digital guards
Yeah.
watching over the data highways,
That's a good way to put it.
keeping out the bad guys,
Right.
making sure information flows smoothly.
Exactly.
And then you have administrative controls.
Yes.
The rule book we talked about before,
Right.
making sure everyone's following this cybersecurity playbook.
That's right. Strong password policies,
Mhm.
access controls, regular audits,
Okay.
security awareness training for users. It all contributes to a strong security posture.
So it's a combo of physical barriers,
Yeah.
digital defenses,
Uh-huh.
and human vigilance
Yes.
working together to create a multi-layered fortress.
Precisely. And the guide emphasizes that no single layer is perfect.
Right. That's why the layered approach is so important.
Exactly.
Multiple lines of defense.
Yeah.
So if one fails,
Right.
the others are there to back it up.
That's the idea.
But let's look closer at one of those layers.
Okay.
We talked about physical security.
Mm-hmm.
Are there real-world examples of physical security threats?
Well, there's the obvious stuff like theft,
Okay.
vandalism,
Right.
natural disasters.
Yeah?
But there's also a more subtle threat that
Right.
people might not know about. Tempest attacks.
Tempest attacks.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does a bit.
What are those?
It stands for Transient Electromagnetic Pulse Emanations Standard.
Wow.
It's a type of attack that exploits electromagnetic radiation.
Electromagnetic radiation.
Yeah. Yeah, that electronic devices give off.
So my computer is whispering secrets
In a way, yes.
to anyone listening with the right equipment.
That's a good way to think about it.
Right.
It's a real concern.
It sounds like sci-fi,
It does.
but it's a real concern.
Yes, especially for organizations with sensitive information.
Are these attacks hard to pull off?
It takes special equipment and expertise,
Okay.
but it's not impossible.
Right.
The guide mentions shielding techniques
Mhm.
like Faraday cages.
Faraday cages.
Yeah.
To prevent these attacks. So you wrap your equipment in metal mesh
Essentially,
to block those electromagnetic whispers.
that's the basic idea.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
It does, but it's a real solution.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how much we take security for granted.
We do.
We think about hackers online,
Right.
but sometimes it's just listening in on these signals.
That's right.
We don't even realize they're there.
Exactly.
Security is a multidimensional problem. You have to think about threats from all angles.
All angles, yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about physical security and tempest attacks.
Right.
What about technical controls?
Okay.
We mentioned firewalls before.
We did.
You also mentioned intrusion detection systems.
Yes. Or IDSs.
IDSs. Okay.
They're like burglar alarms for your network. They're
Okay.
always monitoring network traffic,
Right.
looking for suspicious activity.
So they're the watchful guardians.
That's right.
Scanning for trouble.
They analyze traffic patterns,
Mhm.
looking for anything unusual.
Right.
And if they see something fishy,
Yeah.
they can trigger an alert,
Okay.
log the event,
Right.
or even block the attack.
So they're not just passive.
No.
They can actually take action to
Exactly.
protect the network.
They can be configured to respond in different ways, depending on the threat.
It's like having a security team
Yeah.
that never sleeps,
Right.
always on the lookout.
Always watching.
But how do these IDSs know what's normal and what's suspicious?
Well, it's not intuition,
Right.
but they do use algorithms and rules to
Mm.
tell the difference
Between good and bad.
between legitimate and malicious activity. Yeah.
So they're constantly learning and adapting
They are.
based on new threats and patterns.
That's right. It's a constant game of cat and mouse.
Cat and mouse, okay.
Yeah.
IDSs. I'm feeling a bit safer knowing they're out there,
Good.
but what about those ethical hackers?
Okay.
The ones who get paid to break into systems?
Yes.
How do they fit into all of this?
That's where penetration testing comes in.
Okay.
It's a controlled kind of hacking
Right.
where security pros simulate attacks
Yeah?
to find vulnerabilities.
So it's like a cybersecurity scrimmage.
Kinda?
Where the good guys play against themselves
Yeah.
to find their weaknesses.
That's a good way to think about it.
And just like in a scrimmage,
Yeah.
there are different levels of intensity.
There are
Okay, levels of intensity. What are we talking about?
different types of penetration tests.
Okay.
Like in a white box test,
Mm-hmm.
the testers know everything about the system.
Okay.
It's like having a blueprint of the fortress.
So it's a more targeted approach.
Yes.
Focusing on specific areas,
Right.
testing the defenses.
Exactly.
Then there's black box testing,
Yeah.
where they know very little.
That's right. They have to figure things out as they go.
So that's more like a real-world attack,
It is.
where the attackers are coming in blind.
Exactly.
And there's also gray box testing,
Right. Somewhere in between.
somewhere in between. Okay.
Yeah, they know some things, but not everything.
Different levels of knowledge,
Uh-huh.
different approaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's about tailoring the test
Yes.
to the needs of the organization.
The goal is to find those vulnerabilities
Right.
before the real attackers do
Okay.
and give recommendations for fixing them.
So it's a proactive approach to security,
It is.
finding the cracks in the armor
Yeah.
before they could be exploited.
Exactly. And it's a valuable tool for any organization
Right.
that takes security seriously.
So penetration testing is a controlled form of chaos.
You could say that.
But what about when chaos isn't controlled?
Uh-huh.
When a real attack happens,
Right.
what then?
That's where incident response comes in.
Okay.
It's about dealing with those incidents.
Right.
Minimizing damage,
Mhm.
recovering quickly and effectively.
Incident response, that sounds like it needs its own manual.
It's a complex process.
Where do you even start?
The guide outlines a structured approach.
Okay.
It often starts with detection.
Detection.
Yeah,
So knowing that something bad has actually happened.
that's right.
Okay.
It might be an alert from your intrusion detection system,
Right.
a report from a user,
Mm.
or even a gut feeling that something's off.
So paying attention to those red flags.
Exactly.
Those signs that something's wrong.
Yeah, the earlier you detect it,
Right.
the better chance you have to contain it
Okay.
and minimize the damage.
So detection is the first step.
It is.
What happens next?
Containment.
Okay.
Limiting the spread of the attack.
Right.
Isolating systems.
Mhm.
Preventing more damage.
So it's like damage control mode,
It is.
stopping the bleeding.
Exactly. It might involve disconnecting systems,
Yep.
disabling services,
Mhm.
even taking the whole network offline
Wow.
if necessary.
Okay, containment,
Yeah,
a critical step
it is.
to keep things from getting worse.
Have that a goal.
But what about actually fixing the problem?
Right.
Getting rid of the malware,
Mm-hmm.
patching vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
restoring data.
That's where eradication and recovery come in.
Okay.
Eradication is removing the threat,
Right.
cleaning up the mess,
Okay.
making sure things are secure.
So like a digital detox for your network.
You could say that.
Okay.
Removing malicious code,
Right.
patching vulnerabilities,
Right.
resetting accounts.
So eradication is getting rid of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
And recovery is getting back to normal. That's right.
Okay.
Restoring systems and data from backups.
Right.
Getting everything up and running again.
Okay.
Back to business as usual.
It's like putting the pieces back together
It can be.
after a cyber hurricane.
Yeah. But hopefully you've learned something along the way.
That's right. The final step
Yeah.
is to learn from what happened,
Collude.
what went wrong,
Yeah.
how could we have prevented it,
Wait.
what can we do better next time.
Exactly.
So incident response isn't just reacting,
No.
it's evolving your security,
Right.
becoming more resilient.
It's a continuous cycle of improvement.
Okay, so we've talked about detection,
Mm-hmm.
containment,
Yeah.
eradication,
Yeah.
recovery,
Right.
and learning.
It's a lot.
It's a whole process
It is.
for handling these incidents.
Yeah.
But what happens after it's over?
That's a good question.
Is there any follow-up? Investigation
Sometimes, yeah.
to figure out who was behind it?
Right.
That leads us to digital forensics. Exactly.
Digital forensics.
Yes.
It sounds like something out of CSI.
It does a bit.
What's that all about?
It's about collecting,
Okay.
preserving,
Mm-hmm.
and analyzing digital evidence
Right.
to investigate cybercrimes.
So like digital fingerprints and DNA.
Not quite fingerprints and DNA,
Okay.
but the idea is similar.
Okay.
Digital forensic experts use tools and techniques
Right.
to recover deleted files,
Okay.
analyze logs,
Mm-hmm.
and reconstruct events
Right.
to figure out what happened,
Got it.
who did it,
Mm-hmm.
and why.
So even if an attacker covers their tracks,
Yeah,
there's still a chance of finding them.
there is. Digital forensics can be really valuable
Okay.
in holding attackers accountable and preventing future attacks.
It's like a digital detective story.
It is.
Following the clues
Right.
to uncover the truth.
And it's a key part of cybersecurity.
Okay.
Yeah.
Digital forensics, definitely not for the faint of heart,
No.
but so important, especially as cybercrime gets more sophisticated.
Absolutely.
But let's shift gears a bit
Okay.
and talk about something less glamorous,
Right.
but equally important. Backups.
Backups are essential.
Okay.
They might not be exciting,
Right.
but they're crucial for protecting data
Yeah.
and ensuring business continuity.
Because even with the best defenses,
Mm-hmm.
things can still go wrong.
They can.
Hard drives fail.
Yeah.
Ransomware attacks,
Uh-huh.
natural disasters.
Right.
Backups can be the difference
They can.
between a minor inconvenience
Yeah.
and a major catastrophe.
That's right.
And the guide makes it clear
Yes.
it's not just about having backups.
Yeah.
It's about having a strategy,
A good strategy.
a comprehensive backup strategy.
Exactly.
Okay, so what does that mean? I mean, I back up my files to an external drive every
Uh-huh.
now and then.
Right.
Is that enough?
It might be for personal files,
Okay.
but for organizations, it's more complex.
Okay, what do they need to consider? Several things.
Okay.
First, what data needs to be backed up?
Right. Not everything is equally important
Exactly. Prioritize based on the impact.
of losing the data.
Right.
Things like customer data, financial records,
Mhm.
intellectual property, those are top priority.
They are.
Temporary files,
Yeah.
cache data, those are less important.
Well, that's important, yeah.
Then you need to decide how often to back up.
That's right.
That depends on how much data you're generating,
Right.
how often it changes,
Yeah.
and your recovery point objective, or RPO.
Exactly. RPO is about how much data you can afford to lose.
If you back up every hour,
Mm-hmm.
your RPO is 1 hour.
Yeah.
You could lose up to an hour's worth of data,
Right.
but if you back up every 15 minutes,
Uh-huh.
your RPO is much lower.
That's slower, yes.
So how often you back up
Yeah,
is tied to how much data loss you can handle,
exactly.
but it's not just about how often,
No,
it's
yeah.
also where you store those backups. That's crucial. You don't want your backups in the same place as your main data.
Right, because if that place is compromised,
Yeah,
you lose both.
you lose everything.
So a separate location is essential,
It is.
whether that's a data center,
Oh.
cloud storage,
Mm-hmm.
or even just a separate hard drive
Or tapes.
or tapes.
Yeah.
Okay. And you also need to think about the security
Yes,
of your backups.
absolutely. You don't want them vulnerable too.
So encryption,
Mm-hmm.
strong passwords,
Right.
access controls,
Yeah. All important.
and finally, you need to test your backups
Oh, that's important.
regularly
Regularly, yes.
to make sure they're actually working
Yeah.
and that you can restore your data.
Right. Testing your backups is something people forget.
It's easy to overlook,
Yeah.
but it's so important.
Imagine going through the whole process.
Yeah.
Only to find out your backups are corrupted.
Oh, you can't restore them.
A nightmare scenario.
It would be.
Right. It's like an escape hatch that leads to a brick wall.
Exactly. Not helpful. Okay, so backups are more than just copying files.
They are.
It's a whole strategy
A comprehensive strategy. Yeah.
addressing all these factors.
That's right.
But let's zoom out a bit
Okay.
and talk about data protection in general.
All right.
We talked about the different stages of data
Yes.
in transit, at rest, and in use.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that distinction important for security?
Because how you protect data depends on where it is
Okay.
and how it's being used.
Right.
Data in transit is data being transmitted over a network.
Okay.
Emails, web traffic, file transfers,
Right.
video conferencing, all sorts of things.
Data on the move,
That's a good way to put it.
traveling the digital highways.
Exactly. And because it's exposed to the internet,
Right.
encryption is essential
Yeah.
to prevent interception.
It's like putting sensitive info in a sealed envelope
Yeah,
before sending it.
exactly.
Then you have data at rest.
Right.
Data stored on a device.
Or in a database
Yeah.
that's not being transmitted, but it's still vulnerable
Wow.
to unauthorized access
Okay.
or theft.
So it's like that sealed envelope is sitting on your desk.
It is.
Anyone could take it.
That's the risk. So you need access controls,
Okay.
encryption,
Right.
and physical
They
security.
take the storage.
Exactly.
Okay, so securing data at rest
Yeah,
is about controlling access,
Right.
protecting the physical storage.
absolutely.
And then there's data in use,
Yes.
data being actively processed.
By an application.
Right.
Or accessed by a user.
So it's like opening that sealed envelope
Yeah,
and reading the contents.
exactly.
And it's hard to encrypt while it's being used.
It is.
So how do you protect it?
It's usually a combination of things.
Okay.
Access controls,
Mm-hmm.
application security,
Okay.
and monitoring.
Right.
You want to make sure only the right people can get to it,
Okay.
that the applications handling it are secure,
Right.
and that you can detect any suspicious activity.
So it's about managing access, securing applications, and being vigilant.
That's right.
And these three states of data,
Yeah.
they're not mutually exclusive.
No, they're not.
Data moves between them.
All the time.
Like an email can be in transit when it's sent at rest in your inbox and in use when you're reading it.
Exactly.
So it's not about treating them separately. It's about understanding the flow.
The flow of data, yeah.
And having the right security at each stage.
That's the key
to a good data protection strategy.
A comprehensive strategy, yes.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today.
We have.
From the basics of cybersecurity to incident response, digital forensics, backups, and data protection.
Right, it's been a journey.
It has a deep dive into this world.
A deep dive, for sure.
Exploring the threats, the defenses, and the strategies for staying safe.
Absolutely.
In this digital world.
It's so important these days.
One of the key takeaways is continuous learning.
Continuous learning is essential.
The cybersecurity landscape is always changing.
It is.
New threats.
All the time.
New techniques, new technologies.
It's constantly evolving.
So it's not just a one-time thing.
No.
It's about staying informed, adapting, upgrading your skills.
Absolutely. And there are lots of resources to help you do that.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Online courses, certifications, conferences, publications.
Lots to explore.
There is.
It's about lifelong learning.
It is.
In this field.
Right, because the only constant is change.
And the more you know,
the
better you can protect yourself.
That's right.
Your data.
Yeah.
And your organization.
From those threats.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive.
I agree.
I hope you found it informative and engaging.
Me too.
And remember, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
Absolutely.
We all play a part in creating a safer digital world.
A safer world for everyone.
So stay vigilant.
Yes.
Stay curious.
And
stay one step ahead.
One step ahead.
Of those cyber criminals.
That's the goal.
Until next time.
All right.
Happy hacking.
Happy hacking.
So we've talked about protecting data in transit at rest. But we haven't really talked about what happens when those defenses fail.
Right. When a breach actually happens.
What's then? It's not just about prevention anymore.
Exactly. It's about response.
Incident response.
That's right.
Turning potential chaos into a controlled process.
Exactly. Minimizing damage.
Recovering quickly.
Learning from the experience.
And this CISSP Concepts Guide,
Yeah.
it emphasizes this structured approach.
It does.
Using what they call the PICRL model.
The PICRL model, right?
Can you break that down for us?
Absolutely. PICRL stands for prepare, identify, contain,
Yeah.
recover, and learn.
Okay, a roadmap for cybersecurity emergencies.
You could think of it that way.
Let's start with prepare.
Okay.
I'm guessing that's more than just hoping things will be okay.
Hope is not a strategy.
Right.
Preparation is about being proactive.
Okay.
Having a plan before something happens.
So like a cybersecurity emergency kit
Kinda, yeah.
with all the tools and procedures ready to go.
Exactly. It involves establishing a team,
Okay.
defining roles,
Right.
setting up communication, outlining procedures for different incidents.
So you have a dedicated team,
Yeah.
a playbook, a clear chain of command.
Ready to go when the alarms go off.
Having that in place can make all the difference.
It can when time is critical.
Okay. Preparation check.
Right.
How do you actually know when you're dealing with a security incident?
Good question. That's where identify comes in.
Identify it.
Recognizing those red flags.
Those warning signs.
That point to a potential breach.
So what kind of red flags are we talking about?
It could be an alert from your intrusion detection system.
Right.
A report from a user who's seeing weird stuff. Unusual traffic in your logs. Even a gut feeling from a security pro.
So a combo of automated systems, human observations, and maybe a little cybersecurity intuition.
Intuition can play a role,
Yeah.
especially for experienced folks.
Right.
But it's important to have evidence,
Okay.
not just gut feelings.
So you don't want to jump to conclusions
No.
or set off a false alarm.
Exactly. Once you've confirmed it's real,
Then what?
then it's
Contain.
limiting the damage,
Right.
stopping the spread, preserving evidence.
So it's like a cybersecurity quarantine.
It is isolating the infected area.
Preventing the virus from spreading.
Exactly.
Containment might involve disconnecting systems,
Uh-huh.
disabling accounts, even shutting down services temporarily. Okay, so containment is damage control.
It is.
Stopping the bleeding.
Right.
Keeping things from getting worse.
Absolutely.
But what about actually fixing the problem?
That's recover.
Recover, all right.
Getting things back to normal.
Okay.
As quickly as possible.
Putting the pieces back together
Yeah.
after a cyber hurricane.
It can feel like that.
Recovery means restoring from backups, patching vulnerabilities, resetting passwords.
Right.
Basically rebuilding everything.
To a secure state.
Right.
And a functional state.
Sounds complex.
It can be. Is there a specific order?
Yeah. Do you start with backups? Patching.
It depends on the incident in the systems.
Yes, yeah.
But the goal is to restore functionality.
Right.
Ensure security. Minimize downtime.
Every minute down can mean lost productivity, lost revenue, damage to your reputation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why having a recovery plan is so important.
It is, so you can respond quickly.
Yeah.
Minimize the impacts.
It's the goal.
Okay, so prepare, identify, contain, recover. We're back to normal, right?
Not quite.
Oh.
There's one more step.
Okay, learn.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just fix it. We need to figure out what we can do better.
Absolutely.
Every incident is a chance to improve.
It is. Analyze what happened.
Okay.
Find the root causes.
Right.
Make changes to prevent it from happening again.
So it's a continuous cycle.
It is.
Improve.
Turning those bad experiences into lessons.
Exactly. And that learn phase is essential.
It is.
For becoming more resilient.
Yeah.
More secure.
So incident response is more than just reacting.
It is. It's about preparing, responding effectively, and continuously learning.
To strengthen your defenses.
But what happens after the immediate crisis?
Good question.
Is there an investigation?
Sometimes.
To find out who did it?
Yeah, or to gather evidence.
For legal action.
Right.
That brings us to digital forensics.
It does.
We talked about it briefly before.
We did?
Sounds like something out of CSI.
It does.
What does it actually involve?
It's forensic science applied to the digital world.
Okay.
Digital forensic experts are like detectives. They investigate cybercrimes.
Okay.
By collecting, preserving, analyzing...
Digital evidence.
Digital evidence, yes.
They're looking for those digital fingerprints.
Not quite fingerprints.
Okay.
But the idea is similar.
So they're searching for clues.
Yeah.
To connect back to the attackers.
Any digital artifacts.
Okay, what kind of artifacts?
Could be anything.
Okay.
Deleted files. Internet history.
Right.
Log data.
Okay.
Metadata. Remnants of data in memory.
Wow.
They're piecing together a puzzle.
A digital puzzle.
To reconstruct the events.
It sounds meticulous.
It is.
Highly technical.
It requires expertise
and
special tools.
These investigators need a deep understanding of computer systems, operating systems, file systems, network protocols.
Absolutely.
And they need to understand the legal side, too.
They do.
Right, about evidence.
Yeah.
So it can be used in court.
If you're going to use it in court, it has to be handled properly.
Yeah. No tampering allowed.
Exactly.
Digital forensics is a big part of incident response.
It is.
It helps understand the scope of an attack.
Right.
Identify the attackers. Gather evidence for legal action.
It's like solving a digital whodunit.
It is.
Following the trail to find the criminals. And it's becoming more important.
As cybercrime grows.
Absolutely.
Okay, so digital forensics.
Yeah.
Fascinating and crucial.
It is.
But let's talk about something a little less flashy.
Okay.
But equally important.
Backups. Backups are essential.
Right, our safety net.
They are. Your insurance policy for data loss.
Right, whether it's an attack, a hardware failure, a natural disaster.
Or even just a mistake.
Things happen.
They do.
No matter how secure you are.
A good backup strategy can make all the difference.
It can, between a small problem and a huge disaster.
That's right.
And it's not just about having them.
No.
It's about the strategy.
A comprehensive strategy, yeah.
What does that look like? I mean, I back up to an external drive sometimes.
Okay.
Is that enough?
It might be for personal files.
Yeah.
But for organizations, it's more complex.
What do they need to think about?
Several things. First, what data needs to be backed up?
Right. Not everything's equally important.
Exactly.
Prioritize based on the impact of losing it.
Like customer data,
right?
Financial records, intellectual property.
Those are high priority.
They are.
Maybe temp files or cached data are less important.
Less critical. Yeah.
Then you got to decide how often to back up.
Right.
Depends on how much data you're making. How often it changes.
Right.
And your RPO.
Your recovery point objective.
How much data you can afford to lose.
If you back up hourly.
Yeah.
Your RPO is 1 hour.
Right. You could lose an hour's worth.
But if it's every 15 minutes...
then the RPO is much lower.
Much lower, yeah.
So the frequency is tied to your data loss tolerance.
Exactly.
It's not just how often, though. It's where you store those backups.
That's important, not in the same place as your main data.
Right. If that location is compromised, you lose everything.
Everything. Backups, too.
So a separate location is key.
It is.
Data center, cloud storage.
Yeah.
Separate hard drive.
Even tapes.
Okay. And you need to think about security, too.
You do. You don't want them vulnerable.
Encryption.
Mm-hmm.
Passwords.
Access controls.
All important.
Very important.
And test those backups.
Oh, yes. Regularly.
Regularly.
Make sure they work.
That you can actually restore the data.
People forget about testing.
They do. It's easy to skip.
But imagine going through it all and finding out your backups are corrupted.
Right. Or that you can't restore them.
A disaster.
Like an escape hatch that leads nowhere.
Exactly.
Backups are more than just copying files.
They are.
It's a whole strategy.
A comprehensive strategy.
We've covered a lot today.
We have.
From the basics of cybersecurity to incident response, digital forensics, backups, data protection.
A lot of information.
It's been a deep dive.
A deep dive for sure.
Into this world.
Exploring all the different aspects.
Threats, defenses, strategy.
For staying safe in the digital world.
One of the big takeaways for me is continuous learning.
Continuous learning is so important.
This landscape is always changing.
It is. New threats all the time.
New techniques, new technologies.
It's constantly evolving.
It's not just a one-time thing.
No.
You have to stay informed.
Yes.
Adapt to new challenges.
Right.
Keep upgrading your skills.
And there are so many resources out there.
Oh, yeah.
Online courses, certifications, conferences, publications.
Lots to explore.
There is. It's about lifelong learning.
Lifelong learning in this field.
The only constant is change.
The more you know,
the better.
The better you can protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Your data, your organization.
From those threats out there.
Well said. I think that's a great place to wrap up.
I agree. A good place to end our deep dive.
I hope you found it helpful and interesting.
Me too.
And remember, cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility.
It is.
We all have a role to play.
We do, in making a safer digital world.
So stay vigilant, stay curious.
Yeah.
Stay one step ahead of those cyber criminals.
That's the goal.
Until next time, happy hacking.
Happy hacking.